Come see us on tour in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there. Steve Bannon is a former Trump advisor who has a lot to do with Trump's success. And it's a big mistake for Trump not to include him in his White House. And here I'm going to show you why the establishment wants to kill him, and why they threw him in jail, and why they're afraid of him. Here he is on PBS Frontline. Listen to what he's going to tell you exactly. Why can't you buy a house? Why can't you save money in a bank anymore? Because they don't have to give you any interest. Why can't... Watch this. Just watch this.
We live in neo-feudalism. This is not capitalism. This is where you have a underclass, right? A lumpen proletariat almost that's taken care of by the state. You have the very wealthy, and you have this kind of neo-feudalist working class and middle class in the middle that pays for everything. And the guys at the top, we've socialized the risk, that $1 trillion of infusion, right? Remember.
He's talking about how they socialize the risks, meaning Wall Street, banks, they've socialized the risks, and they privatize the profits. So when they're making all their gambling casino bets, and they called it derivatives, and they called it subprime mortgages, and they were making billions and billions of dollars off that, they got to keep it. And then as soon as that went belly up, which we all knew it would, we had to bail them out. So he's saying that they've now socialized the risks. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about the billionaires who run the world. Okay, here we go.
The balance sheet of the Federal Reserve on the morning of September 18th, 2008, when they're in the Oval Office talking, is $880 billion.
He's talking about right before the crash. So when they got rid of Glass-Steagall, they started doing they turned investment banking into casino hopping. And they did all the BS subprime mortgage stuff, which was garbage, which they all knew was going to crash. And when it did crash, at that time, what was the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve? Let me back it up.
2008, when they're in the Oval Office talking, is $880 billion. The balance sheet of the Federal Reserve on January 17th or January 20th of 2017, when Donald Trump raises his hand, is $4.5 trillion. The most progressive president in the history of our country, President Obama, saved the wealthy. And here's how they did it. They just turned on the taps of liquidity. We call it, the technical term is quantitative easing. Right. The not technical term is called bailing out the people who are guilty. Okay? So essentially, if you owned anything, you had the greatest 10-year run in history.
Wait.
Yeah.
Let's move to the TARP vote. And whether you think, so now all of that is happening.
You have to do TARP, the first one you have to do. Yeah. You know why? Your fiduciary, when a guy like Bernanke walks in and says, I need $1 trillion, right? You don't have time to debate. History's going to look at you. And he says, the American financial system is going to collapse in 72 hours, and the world financial system 2 days after that. You have global anarchy. There's not a person on earth. I don't hear these libertarians and all these, free market, let capitalism take place. Right. No. When they come in and ask for the first trillion in an emergency, I believe you have to say, okay, we got to do it. I don't know what went on here, but if you're telling me this is going to save me and at least get down the road, I'll do it. But remember, that's the first trillion. We kept on for another $3.5 trillion. $3.5 trillion. This is just bailing out the people that caused the problems. Got to think about it for a second. Goldman Sachs didn't lose any equity. None of the partners really missed any bonus payments. None of GE still in business. AIG, it all still exists. All the donors. Okay. The reverse side of this, remember, there is a corollary to this. It's quite powerful. And we know from the notes of the Federal Reserve, a guy named Richard Fisher, the president of the Federal Reserve of Dallas, argued this in the room constantly. He said, by doing this quantitative easing, which you're just flooding the zone with liquidity, we will save the institutions. And we will save anybody that's a big real estate holder or a hedge fund or bank. But he said, there's a huge reverse here. Number one, savings accounts, you're going to go to zero interest rates. Savings accounts are going to go to zero. So 5,000 years of the Western tradition back to the Marty Bannons, which is be a good householder. Get a wife, get a mortgage, get some kids, and you save your money. Well, now if you save money, you're a sucker. Because it's broken the trust. That's the trust is broken. If you save money, you're a jerk. because you're not going to get any interest payment. In fact, the bank's going to charge you. So there's been no, you can't put money away to save into the system. Number two, the pension funds. The pension funds are going to be destroyed. Today, we have a $9.5 trillion gap between the obligations of the pension funds and what we've earned off the pension funds. Why? Because it went to zero interest rates, and the bonds that they can buy have no juice in them. Right. The other thing is public schools and all this. Even communities that are not leveraged can't issue bonds because there's no juice in the bonds because the negative interest rate is 1.5%. We've essentially put the burden on the bailout on the working class and middle class. That's why nobody owns anything. Right. But the millennials today are nothing but the 19th century Russian serfs. They're better fed. They're better clothed. They're in better shape. They have more information than anybody in the world at any point in time. But they don't own anything. They're not going to own anything, okay? And they're 20%. If you mark in time against their parents, they're 20% behind in their income, and there's no pension plan in the future. They're all gig economy. We've literally destroyed the middle class in this country. Okay. And both political parties. By the way, this is not about Republicans and Democrats. Right. This is the way the system works, and this is the way the system comes together to protect itself and to move itself forward. Okay. And so because nobody understands even the rudimentaries of finance, right? And they keep the public kind of economically illiterate.
So that's it. That's where that clip ends.
Did you hear? So he goes, nobody's going to own anything.
Nobody's going to own anything.
Thereafter, we suddenly saw the WEF, you'll own nothing and be happy. So was that the plan all along, or are they covering up for the crimes before with new crimes? I think it's a plan all along.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that's that Fabian socialism is what this is, neo-feudalism. It's you're going to depend on the nobly oblige.
That's right.
Of these rich assholes.
And he said
it comes out of England, by the way.
Millenniums, the millennial generation are like the 19th century Russian serfs.
And that's why they're on TikTok. This is a day in my life at the office. I get a massage, then I get my coffee. I'm not allowed to go home ever, but all my needs are here, and I'm property. I'm human resources.
Here is Mike Benz. He said, "Read this." So they prosecuted him.
He's good too,
and they put him in jail. That guy. So remember how they said that Trump is going to weaponize the Justice Department and prosecute his political enemies? That's exactly what they did to people who are surrounding Trump. They put a dozen people, and they tried to put Trump in jail. And then they tried to bankrupt him, which is why he had to get in bed with Elon Musk. So he says, read this. The prosecutors literally asked and got prison for Steve Bannon because his media platform mocks members of the committee through offensive name calling and ridicules the criminal justice system through hyperbole. You think this is so he got thrown by a congressional committee. They got him for contempt. And here it is down here. The defendant's default on the committee's subpoena. He didn't honor a subpoena, but lots of people don't honor the subpoenas. They don't get thrown in jail.
Right.
Well, they threw him in jail for it. And throughout this prosecution, as described above, the defendant has leveraged his media platform to mock members of the committee through offensive name calling, deride the committee's investigation through rhetoric that risks inspiring violence, and ridicule that criminal justice system through hyperbole. Hyperbole is now criminal.
Don't ridicule us. And by the way, it's not hyperbole. They're guilty of all those things. It's not an exaggeration of any kind.
So just like when they prosecuted Trump for doing what every real estate person does, inflate the price of their property to get a bigger loan. They've never prosecuted that thing ever since or before it, and never will be prosecuted again.
Right. Same
thing here. They're prosecuting him for he's mocking the committee. He's using hyperbole.
Here's hyperbole. The entire Justice Department are satanic pedivores. Pedivores. That means they eat children. That's an example of hyperbolic language. He just said the real things they did.
Yes.
That's not anything fantastical.
Oh my God, he's using hyperbole. Well, you got to drag him to the torture chamber, or worse, make him a guest on The View. Here we go.
What is that feudal?
Here he is talking with genius Bill Maher. Watch this.
I know.
With this attitude,
I
you know the
know, I
beauty.
know,
No,
I
the
know.
beauty.
I know
We're going
you're
to keep
enjoying
winning.
it.
No, we're
Okay.
going to keep winning. I love this.
I know you do.
Guys
Oh, I
have
know
not-
you do.
How can you sit here? How can you sit here and have an oligarch, a Republican oligarch, that is going to be the salvation of the Democratic Party? Okay, it's outrageous. You guys have screwed.
Okay.
Well, Bernie's been screwed by the Democratic Party. Look at the last week. They wouldn't allow the poll to be released where he was up 4. Okay, then they do this thing as soon as the whole debacle about the count.
Well,
as soon as he starts closing in, the Democratic Party says, "Hey, let's have a recanvass." Okay, the Bernie voters are to do what they did in 2016.
Right.
We've had a belly full of the Clintons. Come either don't vote or come vote for Trump.
I understand why you're against Bernie. Yes, I mean he has
I like
too,
Bernie.
too much social.
I like Bernie.
Really, you want socialism?
No. He's a populist.
Right. Well, he's a socialist.
I don't
A
agree.
straight
I
up.
don't agree with his solutions. I think a lot of.
That's
lot
kind
of
of
his,
a big part of politics.
No. The biggest part. One of the biggest parts is identifying the problem. I think Bernie's identified the problem. We just have
Trump and
different
him
solutions.
shared some voters because they both kind of go after the same problem. You're right.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm just saying.
The Bernie people are help make Trump president.
But you
and
don't
they're going
want-
to help make him president again.
Even
Because
I
he's
don't
been
want that-
screwed by the Democratic Party.
Even I don't want that amount of socialism. I agree we need, well, not agree. I think we need some amount of socialism. I call it capitalism plus. We already have a lot of socialism. But
we don't have a good form of capitalism
Okay,
right
but
now. We
wait.
have oligarchs and
That's
serfs.
true.
The millennials are like Russian serfs. They don't own anything, and they're not going to own anything. We have to redefine that.
But
That's the central part that we have to do.
But whose policies are responsible for that? This bait and switch you guys pull all the time. Just let me say one thing. It is a bait. Of course it is.
No.
Obama was president for 8 years. He took us through the bank bailout, the Wall Street crash. 8 years. That's why people voted for Trump in 2016. That's why. It was nobody
Then
else's
Obama
policy.
said they could propagandize us.
And
through Bill Maher.
And Bill Clinton was the one who repealed Glass-Steagall, which allowed for the banks to do what they did.
Then Barney Frank repealed the Frank Dodd.
That's right.
Act.
Wait a second. Wait, just let me say one thing. Just let me say one thing.
Please spare me. The Democratic Party is owned by Wall Street and the corporate interests. Look what they're doing to Bernie every day.
Oh, God.
I mean, Bill Maher is a complete dipshit.
A complete. So here is here he is talking about what is going to happen now and what needs to happen. And he sounds like Fred Hampton. Watch this. He sounds like this show when I was talking to Cornel West. Watch this.
This is why President Trump and this kind of revolution you're seeing going on now is going to get African Americans and Hispanics, because you realize we're getting beyond race, beyond eventually gender, and get down to economics and money, or money and power. That's where this will all go to. And quite frankly, if we keep this populist nationalist revolution going, we're going to have more than enough votes that we can make fundamental change here. But you're going to have, they're not going to pat you on the head and go, oh, this is terrific, this rhetoric's great, we're just going to toss you the keys and allow this to happen with working class, middle class people. It's not going to happen. The system is so rigged, not just for the wealthy, but really for the super wealthy now. It's almost an oligarchy. That totally different than what our founders and framers in the revolutionary generation had in mind. Totally opposite of what they did. They broke off from essentially an oligarchy where the landed aristocracy and the crown had corrupted commons so much to make it really not governable. So we're kind of back in that same situation, and that's why you got to keep hammering. And we're going to know in the next 2 years, this coming year and then the year after that, whether we're successful or not.
So I don't know if you heard what he said, but this is about bringing black people together, Hispanic people. It's not about race. It's not about gender. It's about economics and power. And
It's simple, very simple.
And he
If
explained
you're
to
still
you,
on race, you're an idiot.
And yes, and you are an idiot. And he explained, and that's why I was trying to impress upon Cornel West about him leading with white supremacy and white power.
Well, he had to. He's a liar, and also he was doing the bidding of the people that forced him to run, which he didn't want to do. Jill Stein told you she had to convince him to run, and then his job was to do what Bernie later did, which was guide you to the Democratic Party. So he didn't know he was going to be put on the spot to that degree by you, I don't think. He thought you'd be cowed by saying, oh, you must like Trump.
Yeah, he thought that would scare me, and I would tuck my tail, and it did.
Because usually leftists are that big of punks.
That's right. And as predicted, I said he's going to end up endorsing the Democratic nominee, and he did. He told people to vote for Kamala Harris in the swing states, which is the only place that matters.
Far left? He wanted Medicare? Is that the far left that Bill doesn't want?
So That's why you don't. That's why you people don't own anything. That's why you haven't been able to save money because the banks don't pay you interest. In fact, they charge you for using.
That's why you're so happy.
That's where all this, you'll own nothing and be happy. All of it, and he's outlining it. And no other politician is talking about this. No other he's not even a politician.
Yeah, they better not talk about it.
And they're not talking about it.
Let's see what happens with Trump.
And that's why they make it taboo to talk about this guy's taboo. This guy, he's the worst. They'll call him a white supremacist. They'll every dirty name in the book because he's outlined the problem.
I don't think it works too good anymore.
No,
I think it don't work for Whitney to do that on CNN, and she is not who probably trying to stay out. It's so obvious now.
Yes,
because she's like, "Oh, you guys are educated." No, I'm not. I literally just look at the things that are readily available. I'm not smart. Like any idiot could see what's happening now.
Right.
Unless you purposely don't.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to show you. Now you know the rest of the story. Come see us on tour in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.